Order. Please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks for joining us on our adjusted meeting time. We appreciate everyone being here. We're going to start with the good news report.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to invite up Deb Letcher. So we have been working through a lot of changes and additions in our health area, and so I have asked Deb to bring us up to date.
All right, thank you. President Ryder, school board members, and President Clausen, I'm pleased to give you an update today. We've been, as President Clausen has mentioned, been really busy trying to accommodate industry need and increase capacity in particular programs that we have. So what I'd like to do is talk about 4 different areas. I'd like to address the radiology technician articulation agreement, the medical assisting program, the diagnostic medical sonography program, as well as the cardiovascular sonography program. So the first example is the radiology technician articulation. This was an initiative that was really brought forth from both of our major healthcare systems in the city, Sanford Health and Avera. And they have radiology programs that are hospital-based that require an associate degree to be able to have their graduates sit for a board exam. So they asked if we would be interested in helping them create a pathway where students could get their associate degree. So their applied associate degree in technical studies was identified as a possibility. For this first year, we're going to focus on Avera. Avera was ready to start, and it will be 2 sites. The first, Avera McKinnon here in Sioux Falls, and then Sacred Heart. So the pathway would look like the completion of the associate degree on campus at Southeast Tech. Then the student would apply for the radiology program. Once accepted, they would complete that program, and then once completed, they would transfer block credits of 35 back to us, where we would acknowledge and grant them an associate degree in technical studies. Our vision is that Southeast Tech College would be supporting that endeavor, about 30% for the students involved, and then Avera, for this year at least, would be supporting 70%. So we're really close in having that articulation agreement complete, and we're looking forward to that new partnership. The second program I'd like to update you on is our medical assisting program. In case you're not familiar with that role, I've defined it there on the slide. But basically that role helps the medical team in a clinic or ambulatory care setting with admission or rooming a patient, doing administrative tasks, performing clinical duties, and interacting with patients as it helps the physician or provider deliver that individualized care plan that they're working on. We have an increased need in industry for this role, as well as an opportunity to provide an accredited online program. In the past, or up until today, we have in the city, at least from a Sanford Health perspective, used an online program called MedCerts. And MedCerts is not an accredited program, but it has been a pathway that the organization has used to gain more supply for the demand in that ambulatory care setting where they work. With our program, we've gone ahead and developed an online program also, but ours will be accredited. And it was pretty easy to really put that plan in place because we're not changing curricula. We can use the same curriculum and not really do any substantive change application to our creditors. So it basically is this summer building that online course, and we plan to offer it as soon as August. Why this particular program is helpful is that in the ambulatory setting, there has been an increased demand and desire to change the mix, what we call skill mix, in the way that care is delivered. So in the past, tradition has always been that the RN and LPN are primary team members, but now we're infusing that with this medical assisting role to complement that work. It helps in the supply issue of nurses, but also in the skill mix and the cost of delivery of care. So those are a couple of reasons why that MA role has been added to the ambulatory setting. One other positive thing that our program will provide is that because a graduate graduates from an accredited program, they're certainly eligible to sit for their certification, but they can be employed in many different organizations. With the MedCerts program, they're not graduating from an accredited program, so they're limited to work at Sanford or that organization that has made that exception, that they don't need to graduate from an accredited program. So we're feeling pretty good about the rigor, the quality, and the opportunity that will bring students. So what does that mean in numbers? We're planning to offer an additional cohort of 24 as soon as this fall, and then start 2 cohort starts each year. So for sure we'll increase by 24 this fall, and as we have the supply and we can fill 24 full cohorts, we'll have an additional 48 students that we can serve in the next several years. I've just given you an example of a creative strategy we've done differently for this program. We've co-branded a marketing flyer that is being internally used at Sanford Health. So it's not public facing, but it's an internal facing document to really recruit interested individuals and provide Sanford an avenue to provide information and relay this partnership that we're building with them. They also have an internal portal where they ask individuals interested to apply, because Sanford is offering a $15,000 tuition support package for them, for each student, as many as are interested. So really high demand. The third program I'd like to update you on is the Diagnostic Medical Sonography program. Diagnostic medical sonography really is about using ultrasound to use waveforms to measure size of organs and structures in the body to help provide diagnostic findings for a provider looking for something particular. We have been working hard at building capacity. Our machines, our ultrasound machines have been old and in need of repair and haven't been super reliable or plentiful. So we've had the good fortune to have some funding this year to be able to make some purchases to replace some of those old machines. We also have improved our bed situation, so we have new stretchers and beds that are portable that can accommodate either visitors or students as they're practicing on one another. The other thing that we're looking at or facing is that we have a full cohort for fall, which is for 24. We have a full cohort for 25 at 26 and 27. So the next 3 years, the cohorts are full, and we have waiting lists. So what to do? What I want to add too, from a background perspective, is in addition to student interest and industry need and demand, we also have hospital-based programs that have their own DMS program calling our program, looking for graduates to be their employees. So the demand is just like beyond almost description. And we're hearing that some programs in the southern area of the United States, such as in Texas, have a 5-year wait list. We have clinical support to expand. So what we're planning to do is, starting this fall, begin a dual start program. And what our plans are is to start with a cohort of 20 or accommodate the 24 that are already signed up for this fall, and start another cohort in January of 20, so that we would have a total of 40 students that we would be supporting on an annual basis, which would mean an increase of 16 students each year. Another piece that we've been working on in terms of being able to accommodate these students, in addition to machines and beds, is, you might recall that we suspended and really terminated our NBT program. And our NBT program had its own special lab. It's just a little lab of 5 rooms. So we have converted that lab into an additional sonography lab, so we can accommodate the numbers and the activity that I'm describing. Okay, lastly, the cardiovascular sonography program, similar to DMS, it uses ultrasound waves as well, but it focuses on the heart. So it looks at the chambers, the valves, the great vessels, to help the physician determine whatever they're concerned about. So along with DMS, we've been building that capacity with new machines, new structures, this additional lab. We've got the same industry need and student interest that we have. And local industry has been quite open to offer support for our students throughout the whole 2-year cycle. So we have an industry partner in town that's actually invited us to come every semester instead of the last 7 months. So the hope is, if we start early, we start having the students apply their knowledge their first semester, we could potentially shorten that off-ramp or that onboarding ramp at the end of the semester. So that's another perk. We have advisory board support, and we are really moving pretty quickly on this one, in that we have received information from our accreditor that we really do not need to submit a substantive change. So we should be able to move pretty quickly on this by fall as well. Our end goal with the cardiac sonography program is to have 30 students in seats in the classroom, but we tend to try to overfill that because this particular course requires some physics study that can be extra challenging for students. So we can lose a few students at times in this program, a bit too in the DMS program, but it seems to be primarily in this one that we struggle the most. So our plan is to increase that 30 number to 40, overfill to 40, but include any returning students, because we do have students that need to return to repeat a course, and then move that number up even more next year. President Klossman and I have talked just generically about what that number will look like, but we have a couple goals that we need to accomplish before we do that, and that is, you might recall that we combined our cardiac and our vascular sonography programs a year ago, and we're right in the middle of administering the first 2-year program with that new curriculum. So the instructors, the faculty members, still need to create the syllabi and teach it for the first time. So we're finishing that this next school year. And also we are planning for an accreditation visit, a re-accreditation visit. So that involves a big self-study narrative that we need to create and submit, and then prepare for a site visit sometime in April and May. So we've got a couple big things happening in addition to trying to build this program. I think I covered everything in the slides. The one other thing maybe I didn't mention is for the DMS program, we are waiting approval from our accrediting body for that. I just talked to them actually on the phone before coming here today. They had a question. So, but all looks good, and we're just going through the process of review. What questions might you have?
So in your diagnostic sonography program, you have a wait list, and you've got fall of 25, 6, 7.
Yes.
This might sound silly, but what do those students do while they're waiting to get into the program? Do you try to shepherd them into another health-related field so they could have more than one certification?
Yeah. So they have the option, right, to wait and find a job maybe, or do something else in between times, or maybe get another certificate or degree of some sort, or go to another facility, go to another institution that might have a shorter wait list. It's a really great question. I think all the graduates ask the same thing, you know. But even to add more depth to the numbers that we're dealing with, we had 261 students apply for that program this year. And so far we have 28 accepted, and we have 21 on the wait list. Now that means, you know, those numbers are dynamic, they change every day, but those were the main numbers.
I just hate losing students, you know.
Yeah, so we're trying to grab as many as we can with the resources that we have available.
It's encouraging to see the dual start and the online, some of that flexibility to accommodate students where, you know, where it's appropriate for those various programs. A couple questions. What does it mean, the 30/70 partner support with Avera in the radiology? 30/70.
Yeah, so the intent, as partners, we talked about, so what kind of support will the student be provided by both partners? And where we landed was that the campus, the college campus, would be about 30% of their time, and Avera would be giving 70% of the time because of the intensive training for the 2-year program.
So it's a clinical setting. And
It's
that's 70%.
either like, so for us, they'll be taking gen eds. So it will be the faculty time, the support time with registration, the advisement if they have a question, and maybe using the art for their gen eds. For the 70% time, that would be on Avera's campus with their staff, having one-on-one attention throughout their 2-year studies.
Okay, that's great. And then your medical assisting, how many months does that take?
That's a diploma, so it's a full 12 months.
12 months. Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I'm back on your radiology tech. So you quoted some organizations with acronyms for credentialing. Could you tell me what those organizations are?
So for the radiology or for the DMS?
That's the first one, the radiology tech.
Radiology tech, I quoted acronyms. So
That they were getting credentialed from, your program versus Sanford's.
right, so I don't know that I talked about credentials accrediting for the radiology tech, but I did talk about it for
Did I
the
goof it up?
DMS and the cardiovascular.
Okay,
So DMS, their accrediting body is JRC-DMS, and DMS stands for Diagnostic Medical Sonography, and JRC is the commission, the Joint Commission on Accreditation for the Diagnostic Medical Sonography program.
could you go back on your slides, back to the radiology tech? See what I'm thinking of? Thank you.
So these are our partners.
Mhm.
That was we talked about the name of the associate degree. And then we moved into medical
Okay.
assistant.
I don't know which one I was thinking of, never mind.
Yeah, well, so I might have also had another acronym for the cardiovascular program where I would have maybe mentioned KHEB, and that's Commission on Accreditation for Health Education Programs. Yeah, there's a lot of lingo for sure. Yes.
I was just going to add, it's very exciting, all of the programs. We live in a medical hub of a city, and so how we can react to the needs is really important. And I would just encourage you guys, the next time you go to see your doctor, look at the name tag of the person when you walk in and they take you to your room, and I can almost guarantee you that it will say medical assistant. So they are the ones that pick you up from the waiting room. You can be mad at them, they weigh you. And then maybe that's protecting the other people when they have them do those jobs. But, they'll ask you why you're here and things like that. So it really is an important job. And to your point of labor issues and even cost issues, it's an important role to fill for our community so that we can continue to see patients in a timely manner and when they need to be seen. So I'm excited about that one. But I also have a friend who is at SDSU going to school and really wants to be a stenographer, but knows that the waiting. So she's like, I'm just going to keep going to SDSU, but when I get in, I'm going to go there. So to your question about what are people doing, they're enjoying their experience. They're learning things, but it's just not what they want to do. But they also don't want to just stop going to school and work or whatever. And so I think it is an interesting kind of dynamic of what students are doing when they can't get into. I think a lot of people assume, well, I'm going to apply and I'm going to just get in, and that's going to be the rest of my education. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. So
We're trying really hard to be responsive.
yeah, and then doing a great job. There's only so much you can do. There's only so many rooms. There's only so many, much equipment and beds and stuff. So the fact that you're able to even increase by 10 patients or 10 students in some cases is a huge increase. So thank you very much for the update. Can I get that's a good news report. Lots of good news.
Yeah.
All right. Can I get approval of the minutes for the meeting that was held on May 7th, please?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Those are approved. We have nobody wishing to speak with us today. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. No conflicts today. Approval of consent agenda 9A through D.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those are approved. And now on to the reports of the president.
All right, thank you very much. So each year we do an analysis of our graduates from the year before. And so we now have our complete update for the class of 2024. And to give us an update, I would like to invite up Jackie Palmer and Alex Anderson to provide some more good news on how well our graduates are doing.
So this will be a great follow-up to Deb because we'll outline some of the average hourly rates, and many of those programs that she mentioned are in that grouping. So Southeast Technical College graduate career outcomes is one of the most important attainment measures that we have because it shows that we're meeting our mission and our vision for workforce development. The students are meeting their educational goals, they're making a good salary or wage when they get out. So it's very important to us, and it's worth the time that we have to put in hands-on in doing the outreach to collect this information. And it is a year-long process to get that 1 year, and Alex will talk a little bit about that as well. So besides the South Dakota Board of Tech Ed, it's also the Department of Education with gainful employment that we're able to report what our students are making when they graduate. So the public interest and accountability, the visibility of our data is strong on both a state and a national level. And this little puzzle graphic will just kind of show you some of the groups that report out. It's published on websites. The college scorecard from the U.S. Department of Education. The PSEO, which stands for Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes, is from the U.S. Census Bureau. Of course, South Dakota Board of Tech Ed. HLC and program accreditors are interested in the data. HLC has updated many of their success metrics to include graduate outcomes. So that's a little bit of a shift for them. And then the gainful employment with Department of Education. And then finally, national rankings. We do surveys for military friendly, as well as the Aspen, and they will also ask for data such as this.
So this year we had 99% job placement rating for our students. This is great because it shows that our students are getting jobs once they graduate. This is also important because this information is used for a lot of marketing materials and sent out to potential future students. So when they see this, they'll see that they could potentially get a job very easily after they graduate. So hopefully it'll encourage them to come to our school, and then we'll use on marketing materials across billboards, all sorts of things also. So this is just kind of a brief overview of how we get to the reporting. The whole process starts in December. So for the class of 24, it's the graduates from December 2023, May 24, and then August 24. So right away with the graduates in December, we start by when they pick up their cap and gown for graduation, we ask them to fill out a survey, which is the first destination survey, just asking information about what program they were in, where they're going to be working, the position title, the salary, those kind of things. So then throughout the spring semester, we can start analyzing that data, and I can reach out to the ones that might not have a job yet. I can start working with them to try and help find some employment and then collect any missing information. Then we do the same process in May. We ask them to fill out the survey. At graduation, we have the QR codes printed out, bring them to graduation itself when they're picking up their caps and gowns. Then throughout the summer, again, just collecting missing information. That's kind of the whole process. And then again with the August grads. And then throughout the whole school year, we are just continually trying to collect the missing information, the ones that didn't fill out the survey. If they don't fill out the survey, we start reaching out through email, calls, texts, just trying to get in touch with them any way we can. We do a lot of work with faculty members as well from their program. A lot of them get this information for their accreditation. They have a good relationship with the students, so they have the details that they can share with us. And then once we get to about the start of the new year, we reach out to the Department of Labor to try and get an update on wage rates for these students, especially the ones that work in South Dakota, because the ones that might have graduated in December, they've been working there for almost a full year, so they might have got a raise since then. That way we can have the most up-to-date wage rates that we can. So then we get to March, April time. Jackie and I do a lot of work together, finalizing the data, going through it, analyzing it, make sure it's ready to submit to the Board of Tech Ed in May. So that way it can be reviewed and published. The next slide here is just a little bit of information on where the data came from this year. From the first destination survey, we had 52% of our information came from there. For then those students that we didn't get information from on that, we started reaching out to emails, calls, texts. That was 12%. We did utilize social media like LinkedIn to see where they're working, so we could pull information from there as well. And then we got a lot from the faculty this year, so 25%. This is probably due to having a good relationship with their students. As I mentioned earlier, the accreditation that they need tracking for, those sort of things. The National Association of Colleges and Employers, or NACE for short, also uses this information. We report to them as well. Their standards are a little bit different from the Board of Tech Ed, so sometimes the numbers vary a little bit, but this year both ended up being 99%, so it worked out really well. So it was reported at both places that we had 99% job placement rating.
So just a little bit on the aggregate rates, and then we'll get to a little bit more on the South Dakota and geographical destinations on a different slide. But our knowledge rate, which is those that we heard from, either directly from the student or from the instructor, was 86.4%. The employment rate, again, in their field or a field of their choice, was 99%, and the in-field rate was 93%. In-field, South Dakota was 89, and we'll have a little bit more on the geographic destination in another couple of slides. So other statistics that might be of interest, our top employers this year, or for the class of 24, were Sanford Health, Good Samaritan, Avera Health, Billion Automotive, Diamond Mowers, First Premier Bank, DGR, City of Sioux Falls, Interstates, and Lloyd Companies. And just as a mention here, Diamond Mowers was recognized at our Department of Corrections graduation for the welding students as being, a first chance employer. So they definitely were right up there in the numbers. 37 of our programs had 100% placement. There were a couple of programs that we didn't have any graduates in, and so we did not include them in that number of 37. And then the starting median salary was $48,838. Some specifics on some of the health programs and our top engineering program. These are those that were over $30 an hour as an average. We had 7 programs in that category: civil and land survey science engineering at $34.47. Then the vascular, cardiovascular, invasive, and also diagnostic, which is on the bottom of that chart. Those were programs that Deb was mentioning here this morning. So we're definitely doing a service to the community upping the numbers in those programs, as those are high wages. And then we had registered nursing at $31.81 and paramedic science at $31.73. We did have one that we didn't include in the chart because we didn't think the statistics, or we had enough valid statistics, and that was HR was coming out at 3407, but it only had 2 grads, so it didn't make the chart. So this next one is just how we can use some of those outcomes data to inform, I guess, meetings that Deb might have with North Central Heart about, keeping graduates in South Dakota by, using those clinicals. And once you get them in a clinical, that's more likely to keep them here employed in South Dakota. So we can strengthen those partnerships with the local sites to expand student learning opportunities, to enhance retention and support those long-term employment within South Dakota. And she was able to take some of that data with her to those conversations. So just at the geographical destination slide here, the 87% in South Dakota means 13% were not in South Dakota. And so did just a little bit of an accounting on that to see, well, which of those nearby states is kind of getting the most of our graduates. And so as you would expect, Iowa and Minnesota are getting the larger share. So of that 13%, about 33% of the 13% were in Minnesota, but about 37% in Iowa. We had 9% in Nebraska, 6% in North Dakota, and then the other 15% was just a miscellaneous, Idaho, Montana, North Carolina, just onesie-twosies. But the greatest number for the adjoining states was Iowa. Oh, and one other one I forgot is 67% of the 87% in South Dakota were directly in Sioux Falls. If we were to go region-wise, it might be closer to 80, but those that said it's specifically Sioux Falls was 67.
So Southeast Tech also has 14 articulation agreements for students to make it easier for them to transfer on to a four-year university. Of the data that we collected this year, 10.8% of the students said that they were going to continue their education, with nearly 72.6% of those being at Southeast Tech. This is largely due to the LPN to RN program. They can do the LPN degree and continue on at Southeast Tech, and they want to stay. Not all the 72.6% was nursing. Others are getting a second degree, getting another diploma, whatever it might be. But a big portion of it was nursing students. This is an increase from last year. Last year, there was a 5.3% that wanted to continue their education, and then only 50% at Southeast Tech. So on top of the increased job placement rating, the continuing education increased as well. Some other universities, the other highest ones with the highest percentages were SDSU with 8%, USF with 5.3%, Bellevue with 4%, and then USD, DWU, and Western Governors all had 2.6%. So students are getting jobs and continuing their education. So that's kind of a brief overview of the grad outcome report. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a couple questions. On that 99% job placement rate, are you still looking at about 50% of your students that are currently working, at least part-time? So when you're looking at job placement, do they currently have their jobs and they're just, adding to?
That we wouldn't be able to report if what they're doing full-time was their part-time job. I think that's what you're asking. Yeah. We don't have any statistics on that. But I think in the nursing area, a lot of that is happening. It could be CNAs while they're going for the LPN and then get to stay on with that employer. But I don't have any numbers on that.
Are you still looking at nearly half your students that work and go to Southeast, though? Is that number staying about the same?
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay. On that slide that showed the hourly wage with, for example, the land surveyor being at about $34 an hour, does that include their benefit packages? Or are you just taking their hourly?
Just taking it hourly, and it is self-reported by the student. So either they or their instructor are telling us, and if they won't tell us, which a lot of them won't, they don't feel like they want to share, that's when we go to the Department of Labor and get the wage rates from there. And that's not including benefits or overtime.
That's great news. Mm-hmm. And the other one, do you track at all anybody that has gone from their bachelor degree to technical school? How many of those transfer in from a technical, or from a bachelor degree completion to technical?
Sure. This particular report doesn't track it that way, only like tracking it out. We know that they were going to school after they graduated here. That again would be a statistic that I think we have. It just isn't in this particular report.
I think it would be interesting to know.
The percent coming in with a bachelor's degree to
Or
us.
that they already have a bachelor's, maybe they've been working for a while and have decided to go back. I don't know if anybody else finds that statistic interesting, but.
Would be like the National Clearinghouse, who could probably pull some of that, but I see Corey's writing it down. I'll write it down as well.
Anything else, ma'am? Well, you kind of spurred that question when you said, what are they doing waiting around?
Yeah.
Well, you had one at SDSU. I thought, well, geez, what kind of a phenomenon do we maybe have going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't a question, this was just an observation when I was going through this at home, and I thought, so here's my for all of you. New teachers starting in the Sioux Falls School District this fall with a bachelor's degree, no experience, will start at 52,800 something. A graduate from one of your programs that's not STEM and not medically related, you said the median income was 48,838.
With Lance Surveyor at 2 years at 65.
That's a big aha for me, because, wow, I don't want our first-year teachers here in the district finding out that they could go get a 2-year degree and start out almost as well.
And we felt it important on that one to do a median and not a mean, but it was definitely higher than last year when we did the same thing.
Anybody else?
Yeah, as you show, this is obviously a year-long process, and so thank you for the work that goes into that. I think it's important. It sells itself, and so when students are thinking, what's my time commitment, what's my financial commitment, but then what's at the end of that road, I think is super important for them to understand. So the fact that in many times they can probably graduate with very minimal in loans, and then be making a lot more money when they graduate is awesome too. I just want to know, who are those like 5 people who don't have a job that kept us at 99%? Who are they? What do we need to do to help them? No.
Yeah, some just have decided like to stay home with children.
Yeah.
And that we do have columns where we record that, or it could be military or something of that nature. So, but yeah, it is a very small one, and we were at 98.4 last year, so we're up to 99. And as we're working this for Board of Tech Ed, and I know Nick is here, so I'm like, we're starting to input numbers, and we're like, oh, can we just make a few more calls because we're sure this person is employed. Department of Labor is saying they have a wage. So can you get on social media? Can we make a few more calls? So it really is an intensive process of reach out. And we'll have to do this for the 5-year mark as well, moving into the future.
Sure.
So
No, that's awesome. Great report. Thank you so much for the information. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Can I get a motion and a second for acknowledgement?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That is acknowledged.
All right, our next 2 reports are actually both finance related as we continue to have greater transparency into the budget and the overall financial health of the institution. And so we'll begin with the actuals, looking at where are we at for this current fiscal year before we start to look ahead. So with that, I'll ask Christine to present on our actuals for the current year. Hopefully you recognize this format as what we saw last month as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start off with the fun pie chart. Overall inflows and outflows. So at this stage, we are at about 83% of the year completed. As I'm learning a little bit more and watching those rainbow reports, there's a little bit of a lag. Even the actuals have a little bit of a lag. So we were talking about that this morning. I think it could be some items that have come through on actuals, but they haven't actually closed out in the financial system. So even with that little bit of a lag, we can still give you a pretty good picture of where things are at here at 83% of the year completed. So at this point, 29.1 million in revenue has come in. 48% of that is reflected in tuition and fees from students. About a little over a third is on state funds, federal funds 2%, local funds, which is a lot of grants or donations, not necessarily sponsorships. 3, and auxiliary sales at 10. Your auxiliary is your bookstore and food service and childcare types of programs, a little bit of room rental, that type of thing. And as I was mentioning with that little bit of a lag, the state has sent more funds. Those have been processed. They just haven't closed out through your financial system. So what will be happening as we continue on towards the end of the year is you'll see that state portion grow as a percentage, and that will most likely deeper affect the tuition and fees percentage on the students. So you'll probably watch those two change here in the next few months. I certainly am looking for that too. See if we can get that tuition fees part a little bit closer down. On the expense side, 28.7 million in total monies out, right at 50% for the instructional services. That you're also going to see growing. There's a push here at the end. There's a lot of pending equipment, things that had come through again on some state grants and also some Perkins, which is administered by the state, kind of a federal, but again, it's mostly equipment. So you'll see as we go through the next few months, that will probably grow as a percentage of expenses. That's a reimbursable grant from the state. It's all one big system here, but that's happening a little bit later in the year than we'd probably like to see. We're gonna do a few different things opening up next year and try to get some of those equipment activity purchases happening sooner than right here in the last few weeks of the year. So look for that. But at the moment, you are ahead about 400,000. That is awesome. Again, there's a little bit of a lag. There's some more funds that have come in. In reality, it's probably a couple million, but that's where things look like at the end of the May Rainbow Report. So how does that compare with the budget? We talked about some different categories there last year. So if we're using that 37.3 million as the number we're looking at, overall, your revenues that are about 78% of where we were looking to be. Again, I'm very confident those are going to catch up here as I look at some of these totals. There's tuition and fees that's still coming in. You have summer that isn't reflected on here yet. And then there's some payment plans that are happening throughout the semester with students. And so I'm feeling pretty good that you're going to get right there at that 100% by the time we close out the year here for this. As I mentioned, the state, that's a reimbursable thing, so we got to get that equipment moving along so we can get that whole machine happening. So again, I feel really confident with the state funds. They're good for it. We just have to pick up the pace a little bit on that piece of things, but that's where you'll see that 64% instead of closer to where we'd like to be here at this point in the year. Same thing on the federal side. A lot of that is Perkins. I just sent through a reimbursement that's over $500,000. So again, that'll catch up here real quick and be there. Local funds, that'll happen. So again, these numbers seem a little bit low, but I think it's just a combo of some lag and getting a few things going. Auxiliary sales was a little bit better than expected, so that's just wonderful news on that side. And then on the other side, a good portion of that is related to the reimbursement that the Housing Foundation provides the college for administering that. So that'll get caught up here close to the end. So feeling pretty good about what we're seeing there on the revenues and where you'll come out here at the end of the year. Overall expenses at 77% of these different categories. Again, you'll see instructional really pick up the pace. We'll have the payroll piece of that. That's your largest payroll, but we also are going to have equipment, and that's going to get categorized in there. So a lot happening here at the tail end. And then support is kind of really right where you'd look for it to be here at this point, and that makes good sense to me. And facilities, there's quite a few different projects that are underway, and so those could work a little bit into next year. But again, feeling really good. A lot of times facilities gets me a little watching for insurance changes, watching for utility. You know, sometimes you have a really tough winter or a really hot time, and those utilities aren't, you predict them and they aren't quite what you're at, but I'm feeling pretty good about where we see that one at this point. And so for wrapping up the year, that will hopefully come out where we were hoping. The last piece of this is taking a peek at fund balance. Here's a comparison of the fund balance for the college at these different points of time, currently and then 3 years ago. So again, you're sitting on a little bit more cash, but you had some pretty big projects that you were working on in the past years, and that does absorb cash while it's working its way through. I think what you're seeing now is a good reflection of the projects were completed, the reimbursements were picked up, and this could represent some pretty good reality for this time period for the college. For that, keep in mind your burn rate is probably 2 to 2.1 million a month. And we're going to get into lean times here once we get through closing the end of the year before August starts hitting with some other types of tuition. So it's not a bad time to be sitting on a little bit of your cash there. Any questions?
You eased my mind a little bit on the state and federal dollars as I was looking at those numbers.
Yeah, on the percentage, yeah. Like I
So
said.
that helps me, but I'm still trying to square it a little bit in my brain with, so you're going to have to walk me through this. Dr. Corey, you sent us an email that talked about, was it the 98 days comparison?
Oh, yeah.
And the registration numbers were down slightly, like 10 students or something, but the credit hours, that was down more. Now help me with that number. I can't remember, was it like 640 credit hours? Or
Something like that, yeah. It was
Okay.
down a few percentage points at the last. We're actually up as of earlier this
Okay,
week now.
good,
So
good,
there was a
good.
lag with the registration
Good.
day.
'Cause I think at
it's
that
actually
point it
up,
was
so.
down 2.3. All right, good, because I wasn't squaring that, with what you were saying right now, but those numbers have changed already. That
Yeah,
makes me
and
feel
that's
much better.
also, just to add to that as well, that those numbers are for fall, so those students haven't paid
Haven't paid
tuition
yet.
yet in most
Okay.
cases. So we'll start to really see those hit kind of July and August, where this would be mostly students from kind of the July and August
Okay,
of last year, so for this current academic year that we just
that's the
wrapped up.
point I wasn't thinking about, that tuition hasn't been paid yet.
Yeah,
for fall students.
Or the
We'll
other
really see
piece
that
of this
start to hit.
is you're having payment plans, because we'll allow a payment plan throughout the semester. And so a student isn't necessarily paid in full when they get started. So those are coming in. So that could add a little bit of more of a lag to when the tuition actually hits in full compared to a credit count.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you bet.
Anything else? No? All right. Can I get a motion and a second for acknowledgement of the VP report, or the finance report? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That is acknowledged. Thank you. You again.
All right, are you ready for your budget hearing?
Yes.
Yay, okay. These are awesome, once a year. So I went through quite a bit of detail last time. I don't have any changes to propose for what I presented last time. So I guess my proposed budget is what I'd ask you to approve as your budget for next year. And just to kind of give you a refresher there, total is right there at 40 million with a little bit extra and change. Some highlights of this are the tuition increase that the state had put through. So I'm predicting that the credit sold will remain stable. And that's where that difference is coming from, is just students paying a little bit more per credit on that with a stable amount of credit sold. Auxiliary sales, again, we're going to look at those staying stable. And the new award for next year is $2 million of the $6 million HUD award to get started with that. So that's going to be in there next year. A 1% raise for faculty and staff that would be effective as of July 1st. And a few additional positions, and then we're providing resources for those program accreditation visits that we talked about with sonography and a handful of other programs, so they have everything they need to continue down that path and get things done based on those studies.
Wonderful. Anybody have any questions?
I have a quick one.
Can
What
you
was the
refresh
local-
my,
sorry. The local funding, the revenue, the change between the 25 and 26? Can you remind me what that?
There was a big project, I think it was it the Sims Center or okay. It was a little before my time, but I think it was either adding a remodeling an existing.
Yeah, remodeling the Sim Center. I see Jackie shaking her head. It was money that came in for the Sim Center
So it
as
was
we were
a
finishing that up
one-time,
last
very
year.
unusual type of, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's all going to be earmarked to go to that. So then the local funding coming in at the 412, is that for another special project?
That's your typical amount of donations that would come in. The city of Sioux Falls, the foundation does some pass-throughs to help offset some of your ongoing program types of activities. I want to say there's maybe a few other types of smaller donations. So it's not your scholarships, it's other organizations that are providing funding throughout that year for some very particular type of purchase, but it's not a grant that we competed for.
So all the 2.2 is probably more like 1.8 that went to the Sims to figure the average of the 412 with local. Okay, that makes sense.
You're not going to believe it, but that was exactly my question. So we're good.
Yeah, and your wood building remodel is a federal one, so I think that's where you probably saw a pop in your federal amount for the year. So they, kind of.
And we need to do a public hearing, is that correct?
This would be your public hearing.
So do I need to open it up for feedback for our public meeting usually we do?
Yes, is
Okay.
that correct? Yep.
So at this point, I will open the public meeting for anybody that would like to provide any feedback or questions. I will close the public hearing, seeing none. And I think we've asked our questions, so if there are nothing else, can I get a motion and a second for, we're doing tentative approval or approval? Okay, full approval of the budget as presented today. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The budget is approved.
And I do have one more thing, if that's okay, before we move to the next agenda item, one more sort of report. So I know this is your last meeting with us after you leave the board. And so on behalf of all of Southeast Technical College, I just want to thank you for all you've done, your service, both on the board and to the college, and just you're continuing to be a champion. I know your relationship with the college won't end. I know you'll continue to be an advocate for us even after you leave the board. And so on behalf of the entire college, I do want to say thank you. We also got you just a little gift as a way to say thank you as well. So thank you very much. We appreciate everything.
Oh, thank you.
Good job.
Well, you might know that I'm not a person of few words. So I just wanted to, I was actually thinking about this a lot lately as I come to the end of this. And so I was just thinking about all of the things in the last 12 years that I've had the privilege to experience. And so I'm just going to give you a little list. Lots of legislative challenges, budget ups and downs, from really going an all-person learning to multiple different options for students. Increases more recently in credits and student enrollment. I continue to be amazed by the increase in engagement in community service activities that really make a huge difference in this community. Increase in engagement of students and their clubs, activities, tutoring, all the things that are going on campus that 12 years ago didn't exist. I love the cooperation with CTE and that relationship, and now Jefferson too, with everybody being so close. Adding a satellite site for nursing in Huron, the numerous articulation agreements, Avera Academy, Stanford's Classroom to Careers, Build Dakota is a huge impact to our state in so many positive ways. Additional workforce and community partnerships, whether it's the DOC, whether it's, I remember, I still love the presentation about the van that we fixed up for veterans and what an amazing project that was for both parties that were involved. So many new programs that were started, the Sim Center, there's now a restaurant on campus. Like, you just think about all of the ways that it's evolved. I was here for the transition between STI to STC and all of the things that went along with that. And I've had the privilege to work with 3 different presidents as well. And so as I look back, I'm trying not to cry, I want to add to the numerous national awards, recognitions, successful HLC visits, and actually seeing students graduate and then come back and present as instructors is phenomenal. And so I'm so grateful for all of those things. So thank you for helping me to grow as a person, for having the confidence in me to accept my feedback and recommendations, and mostly for your continued work at the college to make it the important part of the community that it is in changing the lives of students and families in the community. So I just have so much respect for all of you and have really appreciated every relationship. And some people are new here and some people have been here forever. And I've appreciated working with every person that I've had that opportunity to at STUC. So thank you very much for your time and your gifts that you share with everybody on a daily basis. So, all right, with that, can I get a motion to move into executive session SDCL 1-25-2 parentheses 4?
Actually, I will move recess of 5 minutes
Okay,
and then we will reconvene in
Reconvene.
exec session.
sounds good. So
Second.
5 minutes, so at 5 o'clock? Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
We have a second.
We have a motion for recess. We have a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are in recess.